Athletic performance is a complex trait in which can be affected by genetic and environmental factors. This covers the nature aspect of the nature versus nurture debate and assesses how the environment can affect the genetics of athletes and alter their body composition to deal with the surroundings and make them exceptional athletes. This is the biopsychosocial model. This includes the biological, psychological, and sociological aspects of a participant's development within sport. It takes into account the age, gender, genetics, mental health, emotional health, beliefs and expectations, as well as the sociological factors such as interpersonal relationships and socioeconomics. The biopsychosocial model is a modernized way of assessing different factors in sport, from diseases to various biological factors affecting performance. As stated by Havelka et al. 2009, a new biopsychosocial model has been suggested that takes into account all relevant determinants of health and disease and that supports the integration of biological, psychological, and social factors. Kenyan runners are an example of how biological factors and the surrounding environment can affect the biological composition of the athletes and can affect performance. The Rift Valley in Kenya is the birthplace of several successful Kenyan marathon runners, such as Eliud Kipchoge, who held the record for the fastest ever marathon until 2023 when it was broke by fellow Kenyan Kelvin Kipton. With steep cliffs and altitudes of around 2,000 meters above sea level, the Rift Valley boasts some of nature's toughest conditions for human life. High altitudes mean less oxygen and therefore higher respiratory function is needed, and more hemoglobin is needed to transfer oxygen from lungs to the tissue. Research by Bergler in 1992 states that training at high altitudes can be effective, as the normal difference in hemoglobin concentrations can be estimated to be about 12% between permanent residents at sea level and those at 2,500 meters above sea level. There are also social implications for Kenyan runners to aim for success. Despite an increasing GDP, Kenya poverty rates are among the highest in the developing world. National poverty prevalence is estimated at 45%. This is a social implication for athletes to get out of poverty, as the Kenyan per capita income is just $800. In conclusion, the success of Kenyan runners is down to a number of environmental catalysts, as stated by Wilber 2012, who states that the characteristics lending to exceptional biomechanical and metabolic economy/efficiency, chronic exposure to altitude in combination with moderate volume, high intensity training, and strong psychological motivation to succeed athletically for the purpose of economic and social advancement. So the relative age effect. The relative age effect involves children born shortly before the cut-off date for age grouping in youth sport programs suffer from being promoted to high age groups earlier than their later born peers, as stated by Musch 2001. As the academic year begins in September, participants who are born in September of one year will play at the same age as participants born in August the following year. This means there can be up to a year's difference between participants, and therefore certain participants will be a year ahead in terms of their development. With factors such as puberty having a significant impact on the growth and development of young players, players can be an entire year ahead of their peers in a developmental sense. This potentially provides difficulty for young players, as they may be neglected for high-performance sports as they are deemed too small or less developed compared to peers of the same age band. This is supported by Green 2024, who states that those born later in the year appear to be at a disadvantage because they are typically physically, emotionally, and cognitively less developed than other children. Now, moving on to the quartiles. There are 4 quartiles in the academic year. Quartile 1 spans from September to November. Quartile 2 spans from December to February. Quartile 3 from March to May, and Quartile 4 goes from June to August. Those born in the first two quartiles are typically earlier developers than those born in the last two quartiles. This can put many players at a disadvantage if they aren't deemed physically gifted enough by coaches and high-performance recruitment. As there is a pressure, particularly in football, to select talent at young ages, the odds of first and second quartile players being recruited become significantly greater than those born later on in the academic year. By Stanislav Jerzy, youth is the gift of nature, but age is a work of art. This is something in which coaches and recruitment staff should take into consideration to avoid letting talented young prospects slip through their fingers as a result of the relative age effect and their perception on whether the player is deemed physically capable of competing at that level.